Good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome to you. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you to all our mentors joining us from across 12 African countries and our mentors in Europe and America. DTIA is happy to welcome you all to our first webinar for this year. Guide to Inspire Africa is a youth-focused organization that inspires the youth through mentorship, career guidance, school visits, and our training programs, including this webinar. Our core mission is to foster a community of continuous growth. And there's no better way to do this than to focus on goal setting and personal excellence at the early part of this year. As the professional landscape is changing, it keeps on evolving, and then we need to transition from intention to disciplined execution. And then we follow up to being leaders and then executing everything with excellence. So to lead this conversation, we are honored to have with us Mr. Osei Owusu Ansah from KPMG. Mr. Osei Owusu Ansah is a Junior Associate Director in Management and Consulting Unit at KPMG Ghana, with over 10 years experience delivering advisory services across West Africa. He is a chartered accountant by profession. He is a project management professional and has a Lean Six Sigma Green Belt holder. He is a master's degree holder in finance from the Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration. He has a bachelor's degree in mathematics from the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, and has a postgraduate certificate in public policy analysis from the London School of Economics. Mr. Osei also has successfully led and supported many projects spanning strategy development, business transformation, and performance involvement for clients in both private and public sectors in Ghana, Gambia, and Liberia. In his current role at KPMG, he oversees strategy and the operations unit. We are happy to have Mr. Osei Owusu Ansah with us today to share deep expertise in strategy with us on goal setting and the personal experience. We will have a Q&A session after his presentation. I'll kindly like you to put all your questions in the chat box. You can also raise your hand and then you'll be unmuted to speak. So I'd like to invite Mr. Osei Owusu Ansah to give us his presentation for today. Mr. Owusu Ansah, you are welcome. And thank you for joining.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Albie. Please confirm if you can hear and see me.
We can hear you.
All right. Sorry, can you see me?
We can see you clearly.
Great. So good evening, good afternoon, and maybe good morning from people joining us across the 12 countries. It's my pleasure to be here this evening. We'll be sharing insights and we are going to interact basically on how we can set goals that can help us drive excellence. I'm going to put up my screen now. Kindly confirm if you can see my presentation.
Yes, we can.
Right. So like I mentioned earlier, we are going to talk about goal setting and how it drives personal excellence. We have a lot of things in mind as individuals. There are a lot of things we wish to achieve. But how do we ensure that we are focusing on those right things at the right time to be able to achieve that? So like Albie mentioned, we are going to go through the presentation. Once I'm done, we will take questions. And the presentation is going to be interactive. We are going to share our views. I would ask you to type your comments. I'm going to ask some questions. You can type your responses in the chat box, and Albie will help me in monitoring that as well. So before we go into the presentation, maybe let me just get a view from all of us on this call. What we see here and what these three things we are looking at, what they have in common. I can't see the chat box, so maybe Albie help me with what people are typing in there. What do these three things have in common? Are we getting any responses?
We don't have any response yet.
Okay, so like I mentioned, I would expect that we have an interactive session. So I would give a minute for us to think about what we are looking at here, what we think these three things have in common. Any responses yet?
Okay, we have some responses.
Great.
George says energy. And
okay.
Daniela Davis says goals.
Okay. Any other views?
Okay. Ramatula says a goal, eating healthy, keeping fit.
Right.
Okay.
So okay, is there another view? Maybe let's take that before we go on.
It's fitness goals, saving goals. And someone says, Mariam says, can I relate them to SMART goal?
Okay. I think we are all talking about the same thing, around the same thing. But research has shown that these are the top 3 goals people set at the beginning of the year. These are the top 3 goals people set at the beginning of the year. People set goals around their finances. People set goals around their health, and health is broken into 2. People set goals around eating healthy, and people set goals around staying healthy. Now, I'm going to pick the gym, which is the picture at the bottom, and give you some interesting facts about the gym. So research has shown that about 67% of, and maybe that's going to tell us why maybe after the end of this session, we should think about opening a gym or something, because I hear it's $100 billion, it's $100 billion market, which people are taking advantage of. Now, 67% of people who register at the gym never step there. 67% of people who register at the gym never step there. 50% of the people who actually step there do that for the first 6 months of the year and they drop out. 44% of those 50% attend the gym at most twice in a week. I don't know if we are going somewhere with these statistics. Research is also saying that about 40% of the revenue for gyms are made in the first month of the year. That's in January. So in January, 40% of the revenue they are going to make the whole year is made just in January. And I believe we know why. The simple reason is this: people set goals at the beginning of the year and leave those goals to act on itself. Why do they set these goals to act on? Why do they leave these goals to act on themselves? Because these goals do not have any direction. These goals are wishes. People wish they could eat healthier. People wish they could save money. People wish they could be healthier. They could have nicer bodies, or they could lose weight. But that's where it ends for a lot of people. So today, what we are going to do is to help us understand the purpose and structure of effective goal setting, including the difference between what dreams are, and like a lot of us within looking at the picture we looked at, a lot of us, we are just dreamers. We don't have any goals. What we think are goals are just dreams and wishes. What's the difference between dreams or intentions, goals, and then our action plans? We are also going to look at practically how we set these goals. And we are going to leverage the smarter model to be able to understand how we set these goals and how we stay accountable to personal and professional goals. Then we look at the most important thing, how goals are not being achieved. What are some of the common pitfalls in goal setting, and how do we stay accountable to these goals? So from an agenda perspective, we would have a first session that looks at understanding goal setting with clarity. We would also lay foundation for goal setting, look at the framework I had mentioned. Then we'll look at how we avoid the common pitfalls and staying accountable. Then we'll put into practice. So at the end of the day, we are all going to draft one goal we are leaving this session with. And I believe that we all have things we've thought about, and we are going to put them in a goal. Now, what's going to shape how we are going to draft these goals? I'm going to ask us a question, and let's think about this question. Let's assume we are in 2027. What do you think would have to happen in 2026 for you to call 2026 a successful year? I don't know if my question is clear. We've moved from 2026. 2026 is spent. We are done with 2026. We are in 2027. Reflecting on 2026 and things that happened in 26, what are you going to say should have or should happen for you to call 2026 a successful year for you? Maybe let's just get a few views, maybe about 3 or 4 views from this. What should happen in 2026 for you to call it a successful year for you?
Okay. So I'm still waiting for some responses.
Yes, let's get there. So like I mentioned, we are going to have a very interactive session. So I want to be sure you are moving along with me in this discussion. So tell me what you think you would call success, or what success would mean for you if we are in 1st January 2027. What would you say, or what would you call a successful year 2026?
Okay, L says, I'd like to achieve a minimum of 3 of my goals.
Okay. So once 3 of your goals are achieved, you would call it a successful year. Perfect. Any other views? Be 30 seconds. If we have any other view, we
okay, Daniela says 2026 will be a successful year for me if I pass my exams.
Good. So Daniela wants to pass her exam. And if she passes the exam, every other thing wouldn't matter for her to call 2026 a successful year. Fantastic.
Okay.
We have the last view. Yes.
Yes, Prince says 2026 will be a successful year if he's able to double his income.
Okay. So Prince has given us a good example. Prince wants to double his income. And I'm guessing everyone here would want to associate with what Prince is saying, right? So there are a lot of things we want to do, or there are a lot of things we want to see in 2026 that would make us call 2026 a successful year. Now, there's a saying that you can be anything you want to be. I guess a lot of us have heard that. And really, it's true. You can be anything you want to be. But the other part of it is you can't be everything you want to be. I don't know if we got that. We can be anything you want to be, but you cannot be everything you want to be. Because as humans living on earth, there's a common constraint, which is time. Time prevents us from achieving everything we want to achieve. Every dream, every aspiration we've ever had, it's constrained by time. So what would help us determine what are those things which we should focus on? Those things that can be reasonably achieved. Because we've learned that we cannot overextend ourselves and achieve all the dreams and all the aspirations. I'm sure if Prince is writing his exam, he wants to pass, he wants to double his income, he wants to achieve not just 3 of his goals, he wants to achieve all his goals. But is that a realistic expectation? That is where goal setting comes in, or that is where we talk about goals. The reason why goals are important is we do not have time, or we do not control time. Time is determined outside of our control. What we can do is to say that with the time given us, what can we reasonably do? So from the definition of a goal, we are saying that a goal is a clear, actionable outcome you are working towards. It transforms effort into progress and dreams into reality. So like I mentioned earlier, we have a lot of intentions. We have a lot of, good, bad, ugly intentions. All the things we wish to achieve in this life. And for the first picture we saw, a lot of us here, and I'm sure I'm not the only culprit, a lot of us here have made these goals before. I wish I could have a lot of money in the bank by the end of the year. I wish I could be healthy. And I believe that I've done that more than once. I've paid for gym subscriptions. I go for the first 2 weeks and I'm done. Right. So one other statistic I saw was the fact that about 27% of people who set goals do not achieve those goals, or they drop the goals by the end of January. No, sorry, 27% drop those goals by the end of the first week of January. 44% drop those goals by the end of January. And 9% are the only people who are able to follow through their goals by the end of the year. And in this discussion, we are using a year as a reference point for our goals. So only 9% are able to achieve their goals. Why is that? Because we do not have clear, actionable outcomes we want to work towards. We have dreams. We have aspirations. We have things we wish we could do. Another definition which I like is that a goal is the object or aim of an action.
Hello,
The
Mr.
goal is
Ansah.
what. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Okay, yes. We wanted you to go on presentation mode with the slides.
Okay, I'm on present. Let me try it. I was in presentation mode on my end. So let me try again.
Okay.
Sorry, is it working?
We can see. Yes, we can see the slides now. Thank you.
So a goal is an object or aim of action. What drives your action? If you have nothing driving you, anything at all goes. If you don't know where you are going, any road will take you there. And I think we've heard this over and over again. A goal is a standard against which we measure success. So how do we know that 2026 is going to be successful? Someone mentioned that she's targeting passing her exam. Once she passes her exam, that goal is going to be successful. Someone wants to double their income. That person thinks that once that is done, that goal is going to be successful. Now, we are going to look at all the things we've mentioned, how we are going to trim it down to ensure that we have a goal which we know is actionable, a goal we know is realistic, and a goal we know is attainable. Now, we give the difference between a dream, a goal, and a plan. And a dream is something we hope for. And there was this popular quote from my lecturer back in university, my physical chemistry lecturer. Once you enter his class, it's the first quote he gives you. He tells you that those who sit for things to happen, or those who sit down for things to happen, have no right to hope. So once you don't take any action, once you don't do the right thing and things happen to you, you don't have any right to hope that things will be better. And that's what we do when our goals stay at dreams. If we don't go a step further to ensure that we define or we confine what these goals mean for us, we do not have any right to hope that we can achieve it. And then the plan will be those actions. How do we get there? What exactly do we have to do to be able to achieve that decision we've made with intention, which is our goal? What do we have to do to achieve that? So we've given some examples here. So one of the dreams we have is to start a business. I'm sure everyone wants to start a side gig, like we call it. You want to have a side gig you rely on to bring you extra cash. But for most of us, that's where it ends. A goal is we want to launch an online store by October. You've given a timeline. You are specific on what you want to do. You are not just trying to open a shop. You are saying you want to open an online store by October. What do you have to do? One of the steps you can take, or one of the actions you can take, is to conduct a market research on what you can sell on this online store by August. So we'll go deeper into it to understand how we set these goals. Now we are going to look at why we need to set goals. Why is it important to set goals? We've understood what goals mean. Why is it important to set goals? We have 3 key points. Yes, the points are not exhaustive, but we focus on these 3 points. The first point is setting goals provide clarity and focus. We see that a lot of the time, we see people being very busy. I remember this on a lighter note. I remember when I was in school, there was this particular guy. I was in doing my first degree. There was this particular guy who you always see with books. I mean, those guys who would make you feel anxious, create unnecessary anxiety amongst you, always studying. This guy is always with his books, always moving up and down. Whenever you see him, you are going to see his books. Either he's heading towards campus to go and study and all. Results came, and this guy wasn't doing as well as I thought he should be doing. So one time, a friend of us found out that going to class was actually a place where he could go and sleep, because his roommates didn't give him enough time to sleep and all that. So he goes there sometimes to study, but sometimes that's where he goes to have his privacy, to sleep, be on his phone, do whatever he wants to do. Once there is no clarity, what happens is what we think is urgent takes over what is a priority, because there is no plan. So what this means is a goal is what will make the difference between or what will make you make a decision when you receive an impromptu phone call from a friend you've not heard from in a very long while, calling you to say, can we meet up? So this friend you've not heard from in a long while, you had no plan of meeting this friend. He calls you and he says, let's meet up. A goal is what would determine if it's a priority or if it's an urgency. An urgency, or what is urgent, takes over our lives a lot of the time. Your phone screen lights up and you feel you have to pick up and look at who is texting. An email pops up and you feel you have to read it. But you have something else you're doing. There's something else you had prioritized. You've put up a to-do list for the day. You've put up time you are going to look at emails. You just have to see that small window pop up and you are back in your emails. You open one email, you see the other emails, you get interested, just like picking your phone. You open the first message, you see the second message, you go to your group chat, you see a video, you start watching. The next time you're on Instagram. And that's how urgency. So everyone will think that you are busy, you are sitting down doing something. But in actual sense, you are not making any progress. You are just busy. So goals give us clarity and focus. It filters the kind of actions we need to take. It helps us determine what we should do, what we shouldn't do. And goals helps us direct opportunities. It helps us notice opportunities and resources that we might otherwise overlook. See, there are a lot of things on the Instagram or the internet you probably haven't ever seen. Why? Because you never thought about it. And now it's weird, and I don't know if it just happens to me. I just have to think about something. And the next time I'm on the internet or I'm on Instagram, I'm getting suggestions around that thing I thought about. Sometimes I think I'm overthinking it. But how you set your goals will give you that clarity on what you should focus on. It will give you that clarity on what your focus should be. The second point is goals give us motivation and commitment. The only time you get to know what exactly you need to do to achieve your goal is when you set them. Once you then set those goals, you may think that you are okay, you are doing what you have to do, but you're just moving through the day. There's nothing to measure, there's nothing to achieve. So you're saying that a well-chosen goal creates a gap between where you are and where you want to be. And there's something about knowing that you have tasks to achieve. It creates some urgency or some tension within you to motivate action. So once you know that you have clearly defined what you need to do, what you need to achieve, it motivates you to take action. That is where you start deprioritizing certain things in your life because now you are clear on where you are going. The other point is goals is how we measure progress. So the goal around, I've forgotten the name of the person who said that the goal around doubling your salary. Let's assume we don't break this goal down, and let's assume you are earning 2,000 cedis, and doubling your salary would mean that by the end of the year you hope to earn 4,000 cedis. Now, something happens, your salary gets increased by 100 cedis. I'm sure if that happens in September, that will be a very demotivating factor for you because you are hoping that you are 1,900 short of your goal. And you are thinking that within that short period, and realistically within that short period, unless a miracle happens, your salary may not be able to double within that short period. But one thing you also failed to do, or you did not understand, was to understand that you can break these goals down or this goal down to say that within the first month, I'm going to do A, B, C, and I'm hoping that my salary will go up by 10%. We want to achieve 100% by the end of the year. So once that 10% comes within the first month, and you know that your salary has increased by 200, that in itself tells you that what you set for yourself has yielded some results. And there's that thing about small successes. It is what would motivate you to achieve those larger successes. So setting measurable goals, it helps you provide feedback to yourself, and it maintains motivation by providing evidence that your efforts are producing results. That's the only time you know that you are going to be able to achieve that goal because you've set up tasks that will help you achieve measurable results as you move on. So these are three of the key reasons why it's important for us to set goals. Now we go into the types of goals. We have short-term goals, those that we want to achieve within days or months. So an example we're giving here, want to complete our online course within 4 weeks. We have long-term goals, want to build a tech startup in 3 years. And these goals, like I mentioned, are goals we should break down. We can also have goals around our profession, goals around advancing your career, gaining expertise in a certain area, building networks, or creating specific impact in your field. So sometime around this time last year, I had taken up a new area in work, that's economic growth advisory. And one of the key things I needed to do was to understand how we can support governments with policy decisions and all. So one of the goals I had at the beginning of last year was, okay, I was going to take a course in public policy analysis, and I was hoping that I would complete it by April. At the time, I just told myself, because I had told myself, and a friend of mine actually reminded me that you said this thing 2 years ago. What has happened to it? You've not done it. But last year, I made a conscious effort. I wrote it down. This is what I want to achieve. What does it mean for me? It wasn't just a professional or a career decision. It was a financial decision as well, because you have to pay for it. It was a time management decision because you also have to make time. It was an online class. What happens is you are given the modules to study, and at the end of the week, you have an exam to take. So you need to sacrifice time and then study and take that exam. So I set that goal. I had to look up for where I could possibly get the courses. Luckily, I found one with the London School of Economics. How much does it cost? I look at the cost. I had to put up a plan on how I was going to raise the money to be able to do it, because like all of us, I also have limited resources, right? And when we go into how we set these goals, I'll talk about one of the key things we miss when setting goals is actually taking on too many goals, thinking that our goals come with time. Our goals do not come with time, because we still have the 24 hours you are. Let's look at it this way. When you are setting goals, assume that the time you have and the things you are doing are all you can possibly do. And that's the safest assumption. What you are doing now are all you can possibly do. So if you are sleeping 8 hours, if you are eating for 2 hours, if you are chatting for 2 hours and all, that's all you can possibly do. The only variable here is you can switch. You can reduce the amount of time you use to do something or increase the amount of time you use to do another thing. So we'll get there. I'll provide the details. Then we can look at our professional goals. We can look at our career, our educational goals, our health goals, our financial goals. There are a couple of goals we can look at. It depends on what is of priority to you. You base on that to set these goals. And one of the tips we've given here is break long-term goals into smaller steps to stay motivated and easily track progress. And like I mentioned earlier, if you break it down into those smaller structures, that is when you are able to measure reasonable progress to be able to motivate you to do more. Now look at the foundations for goal setting, what we need to do before we set our goals. We are saying that clarity is what creates power for our goals. Clarity is the fuel for our goals. So before setting goals, we need to cultivate these three essential factors. Self-awareness. Your goals cannot be set in vacuum. You need to know what your values are, what your strengths are, and what your priorities are within that time frame. So like I mentioned, we need to understand the time frame within which we are setting the goal. That time frame will determine what we need to prioritize. You cannot prioritize a goal that will take you 10 years to achieve within a year. That will make your goal not realistic. You cannot prioritize a goal that is a nice to have when you know you have things that are needed to do. You cannot prioritize goals that do not play to your strength within the shortest possible time. You can have goals that looks at leveraging your strength to improve upon your weaknesses. We can have goals, or your goals should align with your values, because what happens is if these goals do not align with your values, they become an emotional decision. So once the thing moves outside of your value zone, it becomes something that's uncomfortable to do, and you drop those goals. So you need to understand what your values are, what your strengths are, and what's of priority to you at that particular time so you can set your goals. You also need to understand your purpose, why this goal matters to you. So for the person trying to double his salary, why do you want to double your salary? Is it because within the next year you want to start another business? Is it because you want to go to school within the next 2 years? So you need to save up money to pay for your tuition. You need to understand your why. There should be a why. And the why is what will motivate the delivery or the execution of that goal. We also need to trust that everything or the growth you are expecting is possible with consistent effort. Consistency is the name of the game when it comes to setting and executing your goals. You cannot do so. There's Brian Tracy said something that if you are implementing your goals, it's okay to miss your goal once, but once you miss your goal the second time in a row, you've created another habit, and that habit is missing that goal. So missing it once is fine, but once you go into the second time in a row, it doesn't mean you can't miss it another time, but you cannot miss it 2 times in a row. Once you miss it 2 times in a row, it registers in your brain that another habit is being created. So you need to watch it. Then readiness, you should be willing to change habits and invest time. So like I mentioned, 24 hours is all you have. The new goals you are setting is coming to sit in that same 24 hours. Mind you, you've already been using these 24 hours anyway. So what is going to happen? These goals are not going to give you extra 2 hours for you to have 26 hours in a day. You are going to have 24 hours. So what do you need to do? And that's one of the things we fail to do, to understand what has to give. You have to drop something to be able to pick another thing. So just like having your hands full, there's so much you can pick when your hands are full. At a point, some things would have to be dropped to pick other things. So what are those things that are of priority to you? What are those habits that needs to go for you to be able to execute your goals successfully? So there are some 2 questions we've put together for you to ask yourself in setting your goals. What do I care deeply about? What drives me from a values perspective? What kind of person do I want to become? And that's very important. What the person you want to become should drive the kind of goals you set. Now, in terms of setting your goals, we can set these goals, but we also need to have some tools that can help us organize and execute these goals. So we need journals. You can journal to track progress of your goal. And there's something about writing goals. So another study also indicates that goals that are achieved were achieved by, or 80% of those goals were achieved by people who wrote them down. So if you don't write down your goal, you are already in the failure category. You're already moving in that category. You can get notebooks, planners, your tablets to document these goals, set timelines, and map out milestones. You can use apps. There are a couple of apps that helps you in setting goals. There are a couple of free apps, paid apps you can use to set goals. And then the vision board. And I think vision boards are something we are familiar with. The vision board, one of the key questions is asking you is, what is your why? Why do you want to do this? And people sometimes put it in a collage, put it on their walls, put it on their screens, it's on their phones. It keeps reminding them. You don't need fancy tools. And it's very important for you to understand that you all have notes on your phones. You can just download free apps and then you can set these goals. You don't need to wait to have any fancy tool. And maybe that's one of the reasons why I'm not going to, or I did not provide templates and all. We can look at guiding and setting goals, but relying on certain templates may make you think that that is what you need to do to set your goals. But it doesn't need to be anything fancy. It doesn't need to have any great IT tools or whatever to be able to set these goals. You can be as basic as possible. What is needed? The only tool that is needed is your consistency in executing these goals. So now we'll look at the framework in setting goals, and we said we are going to leverage the SMART framework. Now we call it the SMARTer framework, and I will add on to the ENR as we move on. So we are saying that the first thing, how we move our goals from vague wishes into actionable targets, is to have a specific goal. What exactly do you want to achieve? I want to pass my exam. I want to pass my ICA professional exam. I want to pass my CFA professional exam. I want to pass my first level CFA professional exam by June 2026. It has to be specific. So at the end of the day, you know what you are measuring. It should be measurable. How do you know you've succeeded? In passing the exam, yes. The results comes and you know you've succeeded. You tick that box. You want to increase your salary. How do you know you've succeeded? What does that mean for you? What number is a good measure for you to know that you've achieved success? Is your goal achievable? And achievable here means you considering your constraints. Your constraints can be financial resources. It can be time. It can be skills. So for example, you saying you want to be a successful businessman by the end of the year. That's a stretch goal for someone who has no skill in business, who doesn't have the financial resources, and who barely came out of school, no experience at all. That's goal. So it's good to set stretch goals. Stretch goals means if I extend my hand, I should be able to touch it. That's different from unattainable goals. Unattainable goals, when you stand on the chair, it's very difficult for you to reach those goals. And we should be measured in setting goals, else we set ourselves up to fail right from the beginning. And I don't think that's what we want to do. The goals should be relevant. Does the goal align with your vision and values? The fact that you've seen someone doing something doesn't necessarily mean you should have it as a goal. It's good to admire people. You pick what aligns with your vision, what aligns with your value, and you can set goals around it. But don't say someone is doing this, so I also want to do this. When you've not assessed your strength, you've not assessed your resources, you've not assessed your skill, how relevant it is in your context. So a doctor doing something in his field, or a doctor trying to achieve something, may not necessarily pivot easily to you, an HR person or a finance person. You need to take account of your context and set relevant goals. And it should be time bound. A goal should have a timeline. If you don't have a timeline, you just keep going and you never know when you've reached where you're going. So we have examples of goals, vague goals. One example is you want to build confidence. What does that mean? What does it mean for you to build confidence? A smarter way is to say you want to be able to speak at 3 events by August 1st. That's one of the actions you can take if you want to build confidence. You can enroll in a Toastmasters class. That's one action by the end of January. You would attend church meetings and target to speak 2 or 3 times during Bible study groups. That's an actionable goal every week. So this is the SMART framework, and we've given an example in the next slide, using someone who wants to transition into a finance related role. We are saying that for this person, what does a specific goal mean? So we are saying that we want to look at what exactly you want to do in finance. Do you want to be a finance analyst or a financial analyst? Do you want to be a financial associate or a finance associate? Do you want to be an investment analyst? Do you want to be an accountant? You need to understand this. You don't just transition into finance role, because finance is a very broad field. So if you don't confine what you want to do, it doesn't become specific. So you don't know what exactly you are doing. Measurable. Complete at least 3 relevant certifications. Submit a minimum of 10 tailored job applications per month. This is how you measure your transition. Transitioning here means you want to build a skill and you want to put yourself in a position where you can land these roles. So you set actions around it. Achievable. How are you going to leverage your analytical or business experience? How are you going to strengthen your technical skill? Example, your Excel skill, your financial modeling, because you cannot be a finance person and be Excel averse. You hate Excel. No, that's not going to be possible. Finance and Excel are brothers, right? So how do you ensure that you are doing those things that can help you achieve that goal? And the goals should be relevant. It should align with your long-term career interest in finance. And this should enhance your professional growth, your earning potential, the exposure to financial decision-making and all. And it should be time-bound. When do you want to achieve it? So based on that, we've drafted something as a goal for someone who is trying to transition into finance. So we are saying that by 31st December 2026, I will transition into a finance-related role by, and the by talks about, so the which, if I should put it that way, has been highlighted there, by completing specific certifications. FMVA, that's Financial Modeling and Valuation Analyst, CFA Level 1, or ACCA modules. You want to build proficiency in financial analysis tools, Excel, Power BI, and basic modeling. Updating your CV and LinkedIn profile. You are positioning yourself to be able to land this job. Applying for at least 10 targeted finance roles, measurable. 10 targeted finance roles. I'll also expand my professional network by attending at least 4 finance-related events or webinars and securing at least 6 interviews before 31st December 2026. And this goal can actually be broken down further into smaller actionable steps so that you are able to measure. So for example, you want to be able to attend 4 finance-related events or webinars. One way you can break it down is to say that by the end of February 2020, or by mid of February, 15th February 2026, I would have conducted a research to identify all finance-related events taking place in Accra. That's a smaller goal you can achieve. that's helping you towards achieving that broader goal of saying you want to attend these events. To attend the event, you should be able to understand where these events are happening, what exactly they are talking about, whether you have to make any financial commitments, if you have to put in time. So once you break it down this way, you yourself will become motivated to achieve it. But if you leave it at a broad level, well, if an event comes up, if I hear about an event, I may just attend, but I need to be intentional about it. Now we go to what I call the most important part of the goal setting, and it's the pitfalls, the things that hold us back from executing or setting and executing our goals. So the first is to say we set vague goals, and I think I've spoken a lot about it. The goals are not specific; they do not have any end in mind and all. We don't have any timelines to our goals. We just set these goals. We don't assign timelines, and we don't break it down to have smaller milestones or shorter milestones towards achieving these goals. We set goals on the expectation of others. We leverage what others are doing. We don't look at it ourselves, and then we set these goals. We overload our goals. We end up becoming overwhelmed with too many goals. And the problem with this is, if you're able to break the goals into smaller bits, you are able to measure that success. Like we mentioned earlier, there's something called productivity dysmorphia. Productivity dysmorphia. What that seeks to say is there are people who are achieving a lot, but because they have set a higher goal ahead of them, they tend to overlook those small successes they are chopping, or they tend to overlook those small productive things they've done. And when that happens, what happens is you never get satisfied. And then it leads to burnout, and you are not able to achieve any other thing. You are not able to celebrate those smaller wins as and when they happen. You are not able to acknowledge it when it happens. You are not able to acknowledge that progress. So you are always looking at something, and at the end of the day, that thing ends up becoming an illusion, because there's always that bigger thing you are looking at that you're actually not seeing that you are working towards your goal. It's simply because you've not broken the goal down to those actionable steps. Then we also don't review our goals. So like I mentioned, let me go back to the SMART. I mentioned it's now smarter. The other two are evaluating your goals. You have to, at any point in time, reassess the environment you're operating in to say that, are my goals still relevant? Are these goals still achievable? Things change within. So COVID came and certain goals just couldn't be achievable. Certain goals could be achievable by using other means. The only way you're able to tell that is if you are able to evaluate your goals and then review them. So that's the E&R, evaluate and review. So that's also another very important thing. Sometimes things change within our context. You are earning more. Now you lost your job, you are earning less. You still have a certain goal. What do you have to do to ensure that that goal is still achievable? Do you have to break it down? Do you have to increase the timeline? Do you have to increase the resources needed? What do you have to do to make sure that these goals are still achievable? One of the key things is also how we stay disciplined in achieving those goals. How do we track and maintain momentum in achieving our goals? First of all, share your goals. And that's one thing we all fail sometimes to do. There's this thing about sharing goals, and there's this phobia where people think that if they share goals or they share their dreams with their trusted or accountability partners and they don't achieve them, the person is going to give them pressure, or the person is going to see them as a failure. And because of that, we keep goals to ourselves. No one helps us in monitoring it. No one helps us in measuring it. No one holds us accountable to it. And we end up not achieving it because we refused to share the goals. And it doesn't need to be with a peer. It should be someone you trust, a mentor, a coach, or anyone within the capacity to be able to help you achieve those goals. We need to set check-ins, checking in with yourself on your goals. How are you doing with these goals? If it's monthly, if it's quarterly, if it's biannually, check in to see how you're doing with your goals. It's very important because that's the only means through which you can review if things have changed within the environment within which you are operating. Also use reminders. Some people use sticky notes. Now you even have sticky notes on your tablets, your laptops and all. Use sticky notes to serve as reminder. I need to do this thing before I open my email. I need to do A, B, and C before I get to the office. Set reminders on your phone. Reward progress, like I mentioned, productivity, dysmorphia, yes. Celebrate those small wins. Celebrate those small wins. We need to understand that there are smaller wins that helps me motivating, because the celebration is not just for celebrating sake. It's to motivate you to say that, yes, I've achieved a certain progress. I can leverage on that to achieve more. And then join a community or have an accountability group. If you are very serious about the goal, if you think it's a priority, if you have your why right, you would want to extend your goal to others to help you in achieving them. Now, the last thing we are going to do, we've said a lot of things around goals. We've gone through what goals are. We've gone through why we need to set goals. We've gone through the framework needed to set goals. And that's the most common framework, which, works across all other frameworks have leveraged it, like the objective and key results framework, the OKR. That's the second popular framework. That just looks at your objective and what success looks at, but it all leverages the SMART model. So we are going to do a quick exercise, maybe within a minute or two, to say that let's put what we have heard into practice. We've also spoken about the pitfalls, having too many goals, the goals not being vague, the goals not being specific and all. Can we write out one goal we want to take out of this session? It can be a personal goal, it can be a career goal, it can be a goal that has to do with relationships, it can be a goal that has to do with your health. But can we write out one? It doesn't necessarily have to relate to you, but we want to test our understanding to say that we are now able to write out goals. So maybe for the next 2 minutes, we'll just give some time for us to write out one SMART goal. It will be better if it relates to what you are trying to achieve at the end of the day. So you go away with it and see how you break it down towards action. So I don't know if you can hear me, if you can monitor the chat box.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes.
There's nothing in the chat box now.
Yes. So we want to do this quickly. Yes, before we go into our questions. So
okay. Esther Ajoajanua says capacity building. Yes.
Okay, so Esther, how can you make this goal SMART? Capacity building. So you've given an example of a vague and a broad goal. How do we make it a specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and then a time-bound goal? So when you say capacity building, what exactly do you want to do? Where do you want to build that capacity? Are you trying to build that capacity through training? What is the goal of building that capacity? How are you going to measure? Is it by attending certain trainings? Is it by taking certain courses? How do you measure success? Is it by the number of trainings attended, by the courses completed? How are you going to make sure it's relevant? What is your long-term goal, and how does this link to it? And by what time do you want to achieve this capacity building? Let me call it dream.
Okay. So Daniela says, I want to save 1,000 cedis by 31st December 2026.
Fantastic. Daniela wants to save 1,000 cedis by 31st December 2026. What Daniela can do is to break down this.
So Daniela adds that by saving 10 cedis each day.
Right. So Daniela is saying she wants to save 10 cedis each day. Is this achievable? Daniela has probably evaluated her context to say she does a job that gives her money every day. So instead of saying, okay, I'll take 100 cedis at the end of the month or 200 cedis at the end of the month from my salary, I'm going to save 10 cedis each day. So your context is taken into account in ensuring that that goal is achievable. Well done, Daniela. Any other goal?
Okay. Hackman Sapon says that I would like to take In 3 months, I aim to take courses and learn more on the use of Microsoft Excel.
Fantastic. So you want to take courses and learn more on the use of Microsoft Excel. So yes, you are specific to say you want to learn about Microsoft Excel within 3 months. Can we break this goal down further? How are you going to take these courses? First of all, you have to look out for those courses, right? You have to determine the time you are going to use to study for these courses. You have to determine if there's going to be any financial implication to studying these courses. So, for example, you need certification for these courses. Certification would then mean there's some financial commitment, right? So, how do you break that down? Key actions, saving towards that course, looking out for that course. What are you going to sacrifice to make time to study that course? How are you going to measure your progress at the end of every week? So that's one of the ways we can break that goal down to be able to make it executable. Any other points? Maybe we'll take the last one or two.
Okay, we have two in here. Lee says, I want to invest 100,000 Ghana cedis by 30th June 2027 by investing a minimum of 5,400 every month through my salary and digital marketing.
Great. So this is very specific. We have what we want to achieve. We want to save 100,000 by the middle of the year. And we are saying that we are going to do that by saving 5,400. So I'm guessing that we've evaluated to see it's achievable. Because what it is you're already earning this salary, right? This 5,400 you are going to save is already doing something else. So you need to determine what is going to give. What are you going to sacrifice to be able to save this 5,400? If that is assessed properly, that's when you can make a determination to say, I can actually sacrifice this and save that 5,004. Or I may be able to sacrifice to an extent. So let me save 3,000 and extend my goal to October. So once we break it down, that's when we are able to determine, yes, if I can actually achieve this goal within the time I've set. Thank you very much. What's the last one, please?
Okay. It says Prince says that I want to drop in weight to 80 kg by December 2026. Take 10,000 steps per day and eat within 1,500 calories per day.
Right. Fantastic. That's also very specific. But let me just tell you that working every day is difficult, right? So it's one of the things I've told myself. The whole of this week, I haven't done it. So I've created another habit, right? Which is missing my work. But you need to make it realistic. So is it something you can do every day? Looking at your schedule, for example, can you target 3 times a week or 4 times a week? What has to give? Do I have to do it early in the morning? Do I have to be up by 4:30? Do it, be back by 6 o'clock, take my bath, go to work? Or do I have to do it in the evening? Let's break it down to make it a bit more specific. Thank you very much. I think we've had very good goals, and I believe that we are going to go back, break it down, make the goals we've set for ourselves more actionable as we leave this session. And these are the key things I want to leave with you in terms of our next steps. So first of all, let us choose a goal, write down 3 specific steps that we need to take to achieve that goal. And we are not going to do it tomorrow. Let's do it today, because today is the perfect time to achieve your goal. And one of the key, not one of the key things, the main thing I said is going to be important in executing your goal is consistency. The difference between you and what you want to be is precisely what you do. Thank you very much for an engaging session. I think I'll pause here and then take questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Osei Owusu Ansah. That was very insightful. So we are waiting for some questions, but right. I would like to read Michael's goal. He says that I want Mr. Owusu, the facilitator, to call me tomorrow. That is his goal.
Well, that's not a goal out of reach. But then I'm wondering how that goal is within your control. Because one other thing you also have to consider is in setting your goals is you should set goals like the first point we looked at. It should be something that is within your strength, something within your control, something you can do. So yes, you can set the goal for Mr. Owusu Ansah to call you, but how are you going to get Owusu Ansah to call you? That may not be within your reach or your control. And maybe that's one thing we need to highlight on in terms of setting our goals. And that's why it's important to understand the context, right? Whatever goal we set should be something within our control. Once it's out of our control, the achievability becomes questionable. It should be within something we can control to make it achievable, to make it a realistic goal. So I'll call you.
Thank you for that. Okay, so Esther is asking a question. She says, thank you very much for the insight. The session has been very enlightening. She says, I often come across the idea that setting bigger goals pushes one to stretch, think differently, and grow beyond comfort zone. Could you please share your thoughts or experiences on how the size of your goals has influenced your growth or results?
Right.
Please, did you get that?
Yes. I don't know if should we answer as we get them, or we would take a couple of them then answer? Or maybe let me go on and respond to that. So
okay.
certain stretch goals, right? And I think we mentioned it earlier. There's a difference between stretch and, like the word says, stretch means it's reachable. I can touch it. Stretch means it is within your capability, right? It is, you've assessed yourself, you've assessed your environment, you've assessed your strength, you've assessed your capability, your financial, your technical capability, and all that. And you're saying that, okay, with my capability, if I do things business as usual, I can achieve A. But if I let A, B, C, D go, or if I do X, Y, Z, I can achieve B. That's what stretch goals are. Stretch goals do not mean they are unattainable goals. There's a vast difference. Now, talking about stretch goals, it helps you become a better person. It helps you move out of your comfort zone. So there's another concept called let me find it quickly. Yes, it's called region beta. So what region beta is saying is, if I find myself within an environment where, so let me use work. If I find myself within an environment where I'm working, but the conditions are not very favorable, chances of me progressing will be slower compared to me being in an environment where I know I'm going to be sacked the following day. So what the concept is trying to say is, once people are put in an extremely stretchy situation, they tend to advance faster than people who are in situations where the discomfort is bearable. So once the discomfort is bearable, so the chances of someone living in an organization where people don't really like him, living longer or staying longer in that organization is higher than someone who knows he's going to be sacked tomorrow. That person who knows he's going to be sacked tomorrow will end up achieving more than that person who stays and stagnates in a role where he knows people don't like him, he's not progressing, and all. So there's something about stretching yourself, but that the stretch should be in context, like I mentioned. It shouldn't be something that is unattainable. So, for example, you don't have any experience in business. You are barely out of school. You're in final year, for example. You don't have any rich parents. You don't have any money on your own. And you're saying you want to build an oil tank farm, for example, by the end of the year, or you want to be a well-known brand within the oil and gas industry by the end of the year. That's not a stretch goal. And goals cannot be left to miracles, right? That's close to an unattainable goal because your current context doesn't dictate that by the end of the year, you can start an oil business, grow the business, and become a well-known brand within 1 year. I hope we understand. So it's good to set stretch goals, but then these goals should be in context. It should be in the context of your capabilities. It should be in the context of your resources available to you. And it should be in context of your time constraint. So yes, set stretch goals, but those goals should be done in context so they don't move into the unattainable category. I hope I've answered you.
Yes, very well. So L is also asking a question. He says, what should someone do if they set SMART goals, break them into actionable steps?
Hi, Ali.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't get the question. Wow.
Sorry. So let me take it again.
Okay.
L says, what should someone do if they set SMART goals, break them into actionable steps, and every effort to achieve them, and make every effort to achieve them, but external challenges do not help them to achieve them and prevent them from success?
Okay. All right. Thank you. So I think this is a very good question, and I'll go back to the key elements we mentioned you need before setting out to set your goals. Right. You need to understand your context, and it goes back to what I was explaining. External challenges, yes, can happen midway in executing your goal, and that's why the evaluation and review stage is important, right? But if you have external challenges right from your goal setting stage, it means you did not take or you did not understand the environment within which you're operating very well, or you did not understand the environment within which you are setting these goals very well. It did not take into account your capability. So let me take an example to say that you lose your job. You've lost your job and you are setting a goal that requires you to make significant financial outlay at the beginning of executing that goal. You don't have any money saved. You've lost your job. That may not be an external challenge. That is just a challenge or an obstacle you refuse to assess when setting your goals. So when setting your goals, you need to understand the context. Context means in evaluating your strength, you also need to evaluate what your constraints are. And I mentioned time, your resources, your skills are some of the constraints you may have in executing or achieving your goal. So it's important for you to understand these challenges right from the start before you even set the goals. But if these challenges happen midway in executing your goal, such that it makes the entirety of the achievement of your goal unattainable, that is the point where you have to go back to the drawing board, evaluate your goals again, and then make some reviews. And that review could mean, in some cases, you may have to put that goal on hold. In other cases, you may have to extend your timeline, or you may have to include other skills you need to acquire, or other resources you need to acquire to be able to achieve that goal within the timeline set. So first of all, understand these external challenges before you conclude on setting your goals. These challenges should not walk with you into the goals. But if it happens whilst you're executing the goal, go back, evaluate, and then review your goals. I hope I've been able to answer you.
Sure.
Right.
Okay. So the next question is, what do I do if I set a particular goal every year and at the end of the year I fail to achieve it? At what point do I move on from that goal? Or do I keep trying although I continue to fail? I want to find out, is the goal not far reached?
Okay, so I'll merge this with the, or I would highlight the point I've made around the previous question, around external challenges. So you're saying that you've set these goals, you set the same goal year on year, you are not able to achieve them. That's what should push you into the evaluation of the goal, right? You need to evaluate the goal. Why are you not achieving this goal? There will definitely be a reason why you are not achieving this goal. Either you don't have the right resources, you don't have the capabilities, or the timeline you set for yourself is not realistic. So you need to evaluate that goal and then know what to tweak. If during the evaluation you realize that the goal is an unattainable goal, you need to defer that goal. There's no point in holding on to a goal which you know your current context may not be able to help you achieve, right? So evaluation of your goal is very important. And that's why it's been added to the tool or the framework, the SMART framework, to make it smarter. To say that don't just set specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound goals, but then these goals should be evaluated and reviewed at any point in time. And these reviews are not cast in stone in terms of timing, right? You can review these goals at any point during the execution of that goal. Once any externality is introduced or once any variable changes within your goal, you can go back, look at the goal, and then see what you can do to make it achievable. Thank you very much.
Okay, Nana is also asking a question. He says that what if you are given goals at work which appear unattainable and your work sustenance is dependent on achieving these goals? What should you do?
Okay, Nana, thank you. Thank you for that question, and thank you for bringing a different perspective to the discussion. I'm thinking about the performance management systems of most organizations, right? For most organizations, your goals are not set in a vacuum, right? They are either a set of goals you relate to, and these set of goals are goals that are, one, related to your role or aligned to your job description and all, or two, you actually have a performance manager you set these goals with. So if your goals at the end of the day you feel that they are not attainable, you need to go back to your performance manager to discuss a review of those goals. Because there is no point in setting goals that can be achieved. There's another end to it, right? To say that these goals organizations set are set within a certain context. Your capabilities have been looked at, or the capabilities you are supposed to have been looked at. The time you are supposed to have to do the work has been looked at and all. And based on that, these goals have been agreed or have been aligned to your responsibilities. You can look at the other end to say that, what do I need to do to be able to achieve these goals? Because those goals may not be unattainable goals. They may just be stretch goals. But you may not, within your current context, achieve it as is. You may have to enhance something. Like I said, something has to give. You may have to sacrifice time to take some skills or to develop certain skills to be able to achieve that goal. Like you mentioned, your ability to stay within the organization depends on it. And organizations will typically not set goals outside of what you do. So they may be, yes, stretch goals, but not unattainable goals. So the question you have to ask yourself now is, what do I have to do? And it may be part of the goals you set, or it may be personal goals you set towards achieving your professional or your career goals. To say that, what do I have to do to be able to achieve these goals that have been agreed with at the workplace? So if you need to take a course, you probably have to do that. If you need to build certain relationships, if you need to get someone to explain something to you, those are goals you can set for yourself to be able to achieve those stretch goals you've been given at work. I'm trying to stay away from saying you've been given, because goals should be agreed before you execute. So goals you've agreed to execute. Thank you, Nana.
Okay, so we have our last question from Michael. He says that I've heard people who procrastinate are able to deliver. Does it mean one can set goals that are not time bound?
So the first part of your question, well, it's not a question, it's a statement. I'm not sure the science backing procrastinated being able to deliver, because when you say they've been able to deliver, you should define what deliver means, right?
Yes,
So
I think
if you are going to,
Michael, you
yeah,
can clarify the first
exactly,
part for
because
us.
timing is part of delivery, right? So you cannot procrastinate yourself into productivity. So you need to have some time. So a procrastinator, I'm guessing, is someone who either waits till last minute to do things and all that. I'm not sure what the science is behind procrastination and productivity. But generally, you should have, your goals should be time bound, because that's the only point at which you assess the goal. You cannot decide that I'm not going to put any time limit to my goal. I'm just going to assess it as and when I want. That's be not so at any point in time. So if today I just get up and I say I said I was going to save 100,000 this year. Do I have that 100,000? No. Have I failed? Maybe not. Maybe I have. But because I don't have any timeline. But goals should have timelines, because that's the only way you're able to tell if it's been executed or it's been delivered properly. Unless Michael has clarification, but that's my view. That's my view on the question you're asking.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Owusu. I think we do not have any more questions. I want to say thank you so much for your insightful presentation. It's been really eye-opening. My takeaways have been that I can be anything I want to be once I set goals with direction, with focus and clarity, commitment and motivation. I can achieve my goals. And I will not confuse being busy with being purposeful. I just heard now that SMART goals have become smarter. We evaluate and then we review them consistently. Yeah. So thank you so much. We really appreciate your time with us, and we've totally enjoyed this session.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine. Have a good evening.
You too. So Drive to Inspire Africa has upcoming programs. We have the Next Step program on 4th of February being organized by Drive to Inspire Africa on the sidelines of African Prosperity Dialogues on 4th February at 8 a.m. prompt at the Accra International Conference Center. You can register online at www.drivetoinspireafrica.org. You can follow us on all our social media channels, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. And the recording of this video will be on all our channels. Kindly subscribe and follow Drive to Inspire Africa. We also have a webinar in February. Our webinars are monthly. You can join us for all our webinars. Register online on www.drivetoinspireafrica.org. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a lovely day, evening, considering wherever you are reaching us from. So we see you next month. Bye.